If there's 100% of you and 60% of you is a piece of shit, you got to kill the 60% so you can grow into that best version. One of the things that I know about our social circles, and this is something that might be on the front of a lot of people's mind, as you start to get older, you start to recognize differences between yourself and your social circle. The one thing that I found as I've gotten older is I have cut off a lot of the friends who contributed to speaking a version of Keenan that they once knew 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago. So when I get back around them, they always like to project and speak a version of myself that is not the same. And often, because you are in a different position than them, they will often say, you've changed. And the question is, why in the fuck have I been working so hard if I wanted to stay the same as you guys? And that's a real realization that I think we have to come into true honesty with as we get older, is everybody does not deserve to be a part of your circle. It doesn't matter if you went to middle school with them, if you grew up with these people, because we're on different paths and they're not going where we're going. So why would you continue to anchor yourself back? Even family members. Yeah. 1,000% right.
Yeah, I do it all the time. I'm good at it now, obviously. But when you realize that you don't speak to your worst enemy the way you speak to yourself internally, an internal dialogue will not only become behavior, but it'll come external dialogue. So if you're hanging around, if you hang around 9 depressed people, you're going to be the 10th. You know, the mirroring part of the brain picks up anybody we get close to, and you will start doing their actions and their sayings, even if you don't like. So instead of hanging around the guys that don't validate you, you need to start hanging around the guys that lift you up every time you see. And what happens is you get up in the morning, we ignite the conscious brain, and the internal dialogue becomes good.
All right, guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Hart and Hustle podcast. Today is a really important conversation with an amazing individual who sits across this digital table with me. I've got Dr. Robb Kelly. Now, Dr. Kelly is not only a man who has overcome incredible hardship, is a demonstration of tenacity, overcoming challenges in life, but also is the author of a book called Daddy, Daddy, Please Stop Drinking, which I read, and everybody who's listening to this episode and watching this episode today should really tune into this, because this is a story about overcoming adversity. Dr. Kelly, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Keenan. Great to be here. Hey, guys, great to see you all.
So, Dr. Kelly, who is the man who sits across from me here today?
The man is a guy from England, Manchester, England, who's gone through a lot of stuff in his life that was determined, bordering on aggressive, determined to make something of himself and to save the world one patient at a time. And I've been doing that for 30 years, 20 while in America. And, you know, I love what I do because I do what I love. And I can be very, you know, you either love me or hate me, Keenan, as you probably know. I don't suffer fools. You either want to get well or you don't. Whether it's depression, childhood trauma, alcohol, drug, whatever it is, if you want to get well, I'm your guy. If you want to bring your mom and dad with a big checkbook, I'm not your guy. You know, I treat this for, we have fun. See, I'm dressed nice for you today, Keenan. Usually it'll be a pink top, blue hair, yellow trousers, and sneakers like you've never seen before. So yeah, I believe in living life to the full. I don't, for the first time in my life, listen to this, guys. I've got one thing that a lot of people don't have, and that is enough. I have enough. I have enough of everything, you know, and somebody quoted the other day is like, you know, I want to do this free of charge. The guy said, no, what are you going to do about money? I said, I've got enough. You can never have too much money. And you know something? I wanted to pray for that guy, man. He's like, that's not true. You keep chase, and all of a sudden you're 80 years old. What the hell have you got? You got nothing. I don't own anything that I can't walk away from tomorrow. It's a great place to be.
The scariest experience is obtaining the life that you thought would make you happy, only to realize that it wasn't what you hoped for. How many times are we willing to make that mistake, Dr. Kelly?
Hundreds of times, maybe. But one sticks out. When I got to America, I started doing TV and stuff. And, you know, I got rocketed into this kind of fame thing. And my hourly rate went up ridiculous, and the money started coming in. And I remember coming out my house, nice big house, $1 million house, getting into a brand new Porsche 911 Turbo, I think it was, having the, $70,000 Hublot watch on, driving to my offices, and I was the loneliest, saddest person in the world, Keenan. I really was. And I tell people today, try not to chase the money, enjoy the journey. The money will come if your heart is in the right place and you aggressively want it. So today, man, I got to tell you, everyone thinks we're crazy. We probably give 25% of our money back into the community, helping people like dads who's lost the kids because of drug addiction, but now they're going to court to get them for the weekend. We'll buy him suits, we'll pay his legal fees, we'll put 12 months rent down on an apartment. We just want to give back, my wife and I. Hence why we started last month the Robb Kelly Foundation. That's what it's about for me. I bless everybody anytime, whenever I leave the house. I always bless somebody monetary because I can, and with my time as much as I can. But now I still have the toys, Keenan. I still have the watches and the toys and the cars and the house. But again, this is very important for me. Nothing I can't walk away from tomorrow.
I want to give a nod to the man who came before the individual who sits across from me today. Because when we talk about a man who is now running a multi-million-dollar recovery business with a 97% success rate, I want to talk about what were the inspirations and experiences that you went through while you were in England that put us down this path to recognizing that this was the work that you were going to do to help people who were struggling like you once did.
Well, I went through my own stuff, as you know, 9 years old. I took my first drink on stage with my musical family at the age of 9 years old. And when I took that drink, the whole world just changed for me. And nobody knew about alcoholism in the family then. So I grew up knowing alcohol was good. And when I didn't drink it, weekends when I played on stage, I played the bass guitar, it was going to be hard. So I just got into regularly drinking. Back where I come from, if you didn't drink, you weren't really trusted. And that was just it. Working class, lower working class. Everybody would meet in the pub after work and then go home, and the wife would have the dinner cooked, and that was it. And slowly but surely, it started to take its toll. See, I'm not only an alcoholic, I have the addictive personality, which also makes me a drug addict. Alcoholics are born, drug addicts are made. Before you throw something at the screen, guys, we'll get into that shortly. So I was suffering badly all the way. And the biggest thing I remember from the early days is nobody had an answer for me. Nobody could help me. They didn't know what I was going through. And I couldn't understand why until we did our own scientific neuro search. I couldn't understand that when I took a first drink, I couldn't stop. And that the alcohol became my primary motive to live. So the wife and kids and everything was second nature as long as there were alcohol. And I didn't understand that. I mean, I worked the doors. If I wasn't working the doors, I'd be in a band playing, or, I was at college. That became the scene where alcohol is all around you. And so I drank every single night, and then it turned to liquor later on. But I got married. I thought that would be it. I didn't think I had a problem. I didn't think I had a problem drinking. Okay. Until I was homeless for a year. And one night I dropped down to my hands and knees and I realized I couldn't stop drinking. It took all of that, the mayhem in that house. I stabbed my wife three times one night because she wouldn't let me finish a bottle of vodka. Dropped the kids downstairs, left them in cinemas. It was just horrendous. And I couldn't understand that everything else I touched turned to gold. Every time I drank alcohol, it ended in blackout, prison, hospital. That was it for me. Or I died twice on the streets in Manchester. I attempted 7 times. So when people say today, they go, yeah, why did you take chances? Why you didn't die twice on the streets in Manchester? That's all I gotta say to you. Like, yes, I know is it full enough. I died twice on the street. So I'm gonna rent that $1 million office space in Highland Park, Dallas for a couple of years and sign that $1 million contract. And people are like, how'd you sleep it? I died twice on the fucking streets in Manchester. When you go through that, what else can you do to me that I've already not done to myself? And we get this a crazy double life. So we get that alcoholics and addicts have 2 lives in one lifetime. The first one that we mess up, and the second, if we're lucky, we make something of ourselves. So if I'm not drinking and taking drugs, I want to be the best ever at what I do. Like nobody can touch me kind of thing. And that's the way I've led my life ever since I walked off the streets.
How does a man deal with alcoholism for such a long time and then not recognize the world collapsing around him until he finds himself on his knees in the street? How does that happen?
Well, that's the full blown alcoholic because I think it was worse for me, and I'll tell you why. Because I was becoming wealthy while I was doing this. So money masked my alcoholism. It's like when I'm walking around the garden, the yard at like 5:30 in the morning, taking my first gulp out of a bottle of vodka. There's nothing wrong with that because look at the house. There's nothing wrong with that because look at the cars we have. Our child go to private, and all that stuff. And it was kind of great holidays. So that masked it for a lot until some really bad stuff happened in the house. But when you are an alcoholic, see, the definition of insanity is not the old saying. When it comes to neuroscience, the definition of insanity is me not being able to see my own truth. And I couldn't see my own truth. So the neuroscience, which we'll get into later, backs this up of, oh my God, that's why yeah. But in the end, nobody knew. So I'm walking around getting away with all sorts of stuff because none of my assistants or employees are going to say, hey, Rob, I think you're drinking too much. Or, hey, Rob, you were drunk yesterday in the meeting. No one's going to say that. My wife was happy. She'd come from the same areas as me. And all of a sudden, we're living in a house on a hill and driving Bentleys and stuff like that. It's like, no one's going to say anything to me. But I didn't know. I didn't know. If somebody said you're drinking too much, I'd like, don't be silly. It's fine. But, obviously it wasn't fine. And eventually my wife left and took the children.
There was an experience that you mentioned in the book where you were talking about those early days as a musician. You took your first drink. You went back for a couple other auditions. You drank before the audition and you played incredibly well and got the role. So I want to talk about the anchoring process of doing something like drinking and then having it be reinforced with a positive outcome and how that kind of creates a spiral, if you will, that can help us anchor that behavior in that action. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about patterns. So it was actually Abbey Road. For those guys who probably everyone knows that's where the Beatles become the famous recording studio. Everybody has recorded there, who's anybody. And I was playing in a studio called Strawberry Studios in Stockport, just outside Manchester, 10cc on them. And I saw this ad for a session bass player at Abbey Road. So I went down for my first audition. See, there was no cell phones or anything then, guys. I had to wait for a letter, okay, off the postman, mailman. I got on a train and I went all the way down to London, So when I got there outside, I was 16. I don't know how old I was, 16, 17. I was a kid, and I had a Fender Mustang, guys. If you're a musician, it was a Fender Mustang bass guitar in like a mustard color. And I remember thinking to myself, I just get one beer to relax, man. So that's where the pattern started, and the delusion thought patterns is I got one beer, I stood outside, I drank the beer, went in, I passed the audition. Like weeks later, they sent me a letter. Okay, you come for the second. I think I had 7 auditions for that because it was a serious position. And I was up against pro seasoned bass players, and I was a kid, but I was a good bass playing kid. That's what they didn't know. If I touch any, I'm going to do it to the extreme, the max, whatever it is. So on the 7th interview, obviously, I had 7 beers outside. So first interview, 1 beer. Second interview, obviously 2 beers. And on. I went in. I don't remember going in. I was in blackout. But this was my knee-jerk instrument, man. Yeah, I played it, and a week later, a letter come and said I got the job. So psychologically, with the dysfunctional household anyway, what the prefrontal cortex was telling me was that when I drank alcohol, I was amazing and I could do anything. So that's where it turned round for me. I was the only person at Abbey Road that got fired for being drunk and wasted. I didn't even think that was possible in the music industry, especially back then, because no internet tracing people. But I played with David Bowie, Elton John, Queen, Freddie Mercury, all that guys I did sessions for. But yeah, it's just the reward system that I was getting was unbelievable. It's like I'd work all day hard. I'd come home at 5 o'clock. I'd drink beer until 10 at night, probably a bottle of vodka. get up next morning hungover, so I need a drink to get rid of the hangover to get to work, and it just became a working part of the mind.
When we get fired, what is the reaction in that moment? Because you're on and in the same room with some of the most talented musicians of the time. You get fired for being blackout, for being drunk. What is your reaction in that moment? What are we thinking?
We're thinking shame. We're thinking guilt. I didn't know anybody knew. Very much the imposter syndrome. So this subconscious brain, where all the crap is hid, kept saying to me, "Well, I told you, you were a fluke. You're imposter. I told you when they find out who you really was, you never amount to anything. Just like Dad used to say, and all that came back, man. And I obviously went home and I drank and I drank and I drank just to try and stop that pain because see, alcoholics and addicts are more sensitive to pain and to trauma than the normal person. That's why we suffer more regarding that. But yeah, it was just disgusted. I I was shameful, man. And I never touched my bass guitar for about 6 months after that. I just didn't pick it up because I felt like a loser.
You mentioned something really important here that a lot of people on the podcast deal with, right? When we are on a path and we become hyper successful as an entrepreneur or as a musician, as an artist, right? Often we have these internal stories that tell us when people find out who you really are, something's going to happen. Where does that come from?
Comes from childhood trauma. Childhood trauma is the gateway drug. Really want to get into this, guys, because everyone thinks, oh, childhood trauma. Everything you do today, everything you see, the way you look at the world, your behavior comes from childhood trauma. And everybody has it. Alcoholics and addicts are more prone to it because we're more, we're touched by it in a different way. We hear things differently when parents talk to us. So it all comes from back there. It's like you're never good enough because nobody gives you a handbook with children. My dad was very quiet. He never gave me validation or approval on any. I just come back with Mr. Great Britain, which was a bodybuilding competition, and the trophy was like this high. He said, "Oh, that was it." So I was always chasing approval of them, and I was always trying something. So when I tried something and it failed, I'd go right back to no validation. It was just a waste of time, just what's the point? Because if they know I'm from the council estates or project, if they know that, I can't really do this and it's just bullshit, man, from the subconscious brain. I'm telling you. See, the subconscious brain wants to kill us and make it look like an accident. That's the only way to put it. If you're depressed, if you're PTSD, childhood trauma, alcohol, whatever it is, it wants to kill us and make it look like an accident. And it does a really good job at that. And in nine times out of 10, it wins over. And a lot of people that has the disease I had die of that stuff, So it's really important that you try and separate. Like the subconscious brain wakes up in the morning. When there's lack of oxygen, the subconscious brain thrives. You ever notice when you're nervous, guy, you're not breathing properly, and oh my God, oh my subconscious brain loves that stuff, man. You don't waste the time, you're no good. What are you doing going for that job? Who do you think you are? You're just a little kid from a council estate, and unless you ignite that conscious brain first thing in the morning, that guy, the other guy's subconscious going to take you down the worst days, weeks, months, years you've ever had, man. You can't let that happen.
It's really interesting to me that we're kind of on the topic of discussion about that internal voice. Now, I read a book maybe 3 years ago. It was called The Untethered Soul. And the author of this book talks about the roommate in your head. And he uses the analogy of using the roommate because if you can observe that voice, that is obviously not you. And if you were sitting next to the roommate while you're watching a movie and they were saying all the shit that doesn't matter, like, did we get the laundry? Did you go to the dry cleaners? Did I make sure I put that list on the groceries? Whatever it is, you would tell that list to please shut the fuck up because they're annoying. But also recognizing that voice was implanted in your head by somebody at some time. And so I really want to kind of talk about where does that internal voice come from? Is it just our upbringing? Is it experiences that we've had that have been traumatic throughout our life? Is it just childhood trauma? What does that look like?
It's kind of a bit of everything. It starts as a child when we're told, see what happens. We're told by our mom sometimes, don't put your hand on the stove, it'll burn you. So we put our hand on the stove. Ow. So what the lesson do we learn at that early age is whatever mom tells me is the truth. because I just did. Now, and subconsciously, kid doesn't go, oh. So we learn that what to tell the truth. So what happens is teachers, caregivers, stuff like that, I'll say comments to us like, get up, how many times have I told you, stupid, make sure you do this. And the stupid goes straight in the subconscious brain. And it stores and it stores and it stores all the negative stuff. It's like this guy in your circle, guys. Oh, you're not going to get that job. Ha, ha, ha. And just, he needs to go. He needs to go, and I'll tell you why. Everything we hear, touch, feel, whatever we do it as a youngster, teenager, it's all stored in the subconscious brain. There's billions and billions and billions of memories there. It's so complex. But with the subconscious brain, with all that stuff in, all of a sudden the internal dialogue starts because you're not igniting the conscious brain. The prefrontal cortex, when decision time, is going straight back to the subconscious brain. So from that becomes an internal dialogue. So an internal dialogue, like dropped a pen on the floor. Oh, you fucking idiot. Stop that, guys. Because the subconscious brain will take that. And the subconscious brain is very, very patient. And you go for, let's say you're going for this job and you get an interview and you're nervous and then all of a sudden the head will go, get out there. You don't, what do you think? Look at that guy there, he went to university, man. He's got like 20 degrees. You're here, what the hell have you? Get the hell out. And I'll leave. Or a person will leave. So we have to control that internal dialogue. When you realize that you don't speak to your worst enemy the way you speak to yourself internally, an internal dialogue will not only become behavior, but it'll come external dialogue. So if you hang around 9 depressed people, you're going to be the 10th. The mirroring part of the brain picks up anybody we get close to, and you will start doing their actions and their sayings, even if you don't like. Like I had a girlfriend, we become best friends, like, shut up. I'm like, Colleen, don't say that. It's stupid. Within a couple of weeks of knowing it, I said, shut up. Oh my God. The mirroring part, we pick up all them traits. So instead of hanging around the guys that don't validate you, you need to start hanging around the guys that lift you up every time you see. And what happens is you get up in the morning, we ignite the conscious brain, and the internal dialogue becomes good. So there's billions of neural pathways in the head. 300 neural pathways-ish die every single day. Here's a question to you guys. What are you replacing them 300 neural pathways with? Is it negativity from the past or the internal dialogue? Or is it new stuff from people you're hanging around and making sure that you're bettering yourself? If we don't get up every day and realize 3 parts of the brain reset every 24 hours and that we start again, it's not an AA thing. We start again teaching, helping, complimenting, doing the best person you can be, everything starts to fall into place. But it's only the last 2 years, to be honest, that I've lost that internal dialogue. Because what happened with me, instead of going for that job and getting it and fitting in, I'd do this, which would take me to there, which would take me to there, which would take me to there. It's like all the time, the money was coming in, the fame was coming in. It's like, I'm on this show with 18 million viewers, and I'm on that show, and I couldn't catch my breath, man. It was kept saying, oh, they're going to find out, they're going to find out. They're going to find out what? That I'm a genius? Big deal. That I've come through all this shit that I went through, which is now my greatest asset going forward, and I don't give a shit what anybody thinks of me. What are they going to find out? And that was the most freeing thing I ever went through. Because I had to go back about 4 years ago and see my therapist. And she took me through this. And when you get to that place, especially when you've gone through what we've been through, it's like, nobody really cares. We think they do. They think everybody's judging us. We go into a room, close the door, everyone looks around, they start laughing at something. Nothing to do. Nobody cares about me. They've got their own shit going on. But they're talking about me, they're laughing at me. What's going on? I used to walk in the room, Keenan, and I used to look around and go, I wonder if anybody likes me. Do you know what I do today? I kick that fucking door and I walk in and go, who the hell do I like in here today? There's a huge difference, man. And that's the only way to live. It's not your ego. People might, what's your ego? My ego went when they took my kids off me at the ages 1, and don't come that shit with me. This is a spiritual journey, a powerful journey. Well, I've been restored to sanity. My later life, I'm 63. Well, surely you're too old. I've just lost 157 pounds in the last 18 months. I'm back in the gym. I'm killing it. In the best shape of my life. You've got to move forward every single day and pull away from that.
Why do we struggle to cut off the negative influences in our life?
That's a great
So
question.
often we struggle, right, with the people who we know are not contributing to us being our best self And yet we still put up with the mediocrity of having them in our lives, knowing that secretly they're tearing us down. Do we secretly yearn for that?
This is what happens. It's part of the basal ganglia. So the basal ganglia is a repetition, strength, and confirms part of the brain. The more we do something, the easier it becomes, and it sticks in the head. So there was a girl, 16 years old in Manchester, late 60s, got snatched off the side of the road. Tried looking for her, couldn't find her. 9 months later, police car following another car, light broke. Anyway, they found a stolen screwdriver back to the house. They had drills, lawnmowers, everything there. Saw this box in the corner. He denied any knowledge of it, smashed the lock off. There was the girl that went missing 9 months ago. She was alive, but she was beaten, battered, obviously. He used to take her out every day, sexually abuse her, bath, food, restroom, box. For 9 freaking months she did that. So when they opened the lid, the policewoman in horror leant down. She took this young schoolgirl's hand and she helped her step out the box. She took a police coat off and she wrapped it around this girl. What's the first thing the girl did? She got back in the box. And that's what we do with life. We keep getting, no matter how painful it is, like dysfunctional families and especially women, stay in relationships way too long than you should. We stay in jobs way too long than we should. We stay in a relationship with our guy people way too long than you should. It's like you have to break and smash that box up. Once you start to separate, see, I can always go back and help my people, but I can't live there. Can't do it. So once you separate what I call the cesspit, right or wrong, and they want to try and bring you down, and once you separate from them, you're on a different level. See, I don't mix with treatment centers, NCAPP, whatever. I don't do all that stuff. We do our stuff. We do it well. We don't want to hear what you've got. I know you don't like us, and we don't like you, and that's fine. But I have to pull away from that mentality of letting little Johnny back in the treatment center for $30,000 a month for his 8th time. I don't get. I'm speechless when I hear that. But we have to separate ourselves away from them people. Even if they, like I said before, well, look at you, put your weight back on, Rob. Ha ha ha. I'm just joking. That guy's got no reason to be in my circle. And I will drop him I'm cold at stuff like that, Keenan. If an employee does me wrong or something, I had my assistant here the other day and something happened and fired her. I'll fire staff, I'll cut you off. I'm not doing that anymore. Because you start to believe that shit that they're telling you. Because remember, go back to when Mom said put their hand on the stove, there's 1%-ish of your subconscious brain still remembers that what you hear, there's some kind of truth to it. So 10 years ago, I'm speaking in California. There's 1,000 people there. It was a beautiful night. I spoke, and they said to me, make sure you have a few hours after, shake your hand, they'll hug you, thank you for coming. And I did, and 999 people said it was amazing. One person said you were horrible, you were very, very aggressive, and have a guess what I concentrated on for the next 3 months? I almost relapsed. One guy.
This is a powerful conversation because in order for us to become the best version of ourselves, we have to burn the bridges, like many people say, but we have to also kill off part of us that is not serving that growth, right? If there's 100% of you and 60% of you is a piece of shit, you got to kill the 60% so you can grow into that best version. One of the things that I know about our social circles, and this is something that might be on the front of a lot of people's mind, as you start to get older, you start to recognize differences between yourself and your social circle. The one thing that I found as I've gotten older is I have cut off a lot of the friends who contributed to speaking a version of Keenan that they once knew 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago. So when I get back around them, they always like to project and speak a version of myself that is not the same. And often, because you are in a different position than them, they will often say, you've changed. And the question is, why in the fuck have I been working so hard if I wanted to stay the same as you guys? And that's a real realization that I think we have to come into true honesty with as we get older, is everybody does not deserve to be a part of your circle. It doesn't matter if you went to middle school with them, if you grew up with these people, because we're on different paths and they're not going where we're going. So why would you continue to anchor yourself back? Even family members, 1,000% right.
Yeah, I do it all the time. I'm good at it now, obviously, but yeah, I mean, when my sister from England 10 years ago and moved 20 years ago moved to Texas, I was there 4 or 5. She came up. I started speaking like I used to speak in Manchester accent. So we do mirror the people who are around, but they will, and 9 out of 10 times they don't mean to, but they will drag you back. And like you said, The only reason we know we're any good is when people tell us. That's it. Nobody tells each other anymore. Oh, Dr. Rob is amazing. Have you told him? Oh, he already knows. Nobody fucking knows, okay? I want to just put that on the table straight away. You know? That's why we compliment people every single day. It's like, I can visit. I can't live there, though. And I've let a lot of people go. Most people in my childhood are dead. It was heroin addiction when I went down to college. It hit our area. A lot of people are dead, but yeah, I just can't live anymore. And I'm always bettering myself. Now, can I go back and help them? Can I give them money every time I see them? 100%. 100%, man. But I have to remember that my past does not define me today. In actual fact, it's the greatest asset I have. When you go through it, it's like, oh my God, you've been through all that. I've been through all that. So if somebody comes up and goes, Rob, what do you know about homelessness? Check. Losing your kids? Checks. Getting raped on the street? Check. It's all checked, man. But I have to live in this place. And the other thing as well, Keen, I don't know if you found this or any listeners or watching this, there's a part of that journey that becomes very lonely. There's a part of that journey where you're in between these guys and these guys. My project guys don't want to know me because I'm too rich and that. The rich guys didn't want to know me because who died this guy from the projects. So it became like a year loneliness for me, you know. And it's about knowing your worth in that period and not even wavering. You know, I have a dream. I want to do this. Because I chased money for a long time, Keenan. I chased it for a long time until I realized it doesn't make me happy. Happiness is an inside job. And it's also obviously part of what we eat and who they hang around with and the 4 chemicals that we need every day in the brain. But yeah, you'll start believing that shit. You know, I will not watch this podcast. I've never watched a podcast. I've never watched me on TV. I've never read my book. After all these years, I've never seen one episode of me. And you know why? After all these years, Keenan, I might start believing that shit. I don't want to put myself in that position.
The presence is incredibly impressive because even the experiences that we've gone through, right, can be triggers to take us back to a place that we don't want to go to. You know, as you were talking there, I was thinking about my personal journey. Me being an entrepreneur, I've been in business for about 10 years. I've had friends who have been incredibly successful, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month when we were in our young 20s, early 20s. And one of the things that I did that was the scariest experience of my life was putting a target on the amount of monthly revenue, the amount of money in my bank account, the car that I was going to buy. And let me tell you what was the scariest fucking thing ever is when I obtained those things that I put as a destination and they didn't change anything. And in that moment, I realized that the journey and the goals that I put in front of myself, I fucked it up because it wasn't an event. It wasn't an experience. It wasn't a finish line. It turned into a horizon. And if you've ever walked towards a horizon or flown towards a horizon, you can go as fast as you want. You take a step towards it, it moves farther away from you. And that's terrifying.
Yeah, I've been there a few times. The last time, only 9 years ago, I would say, where I had everything. I had all the luxuries you can even ask for. I think I 9/11, brand new, on my way to work, homeless person. You know, the realization that it's not going to do it for me. The realization is time itself. So I asked women, I said, we've not got time, guys. We've got to do it today. And they go, oh, yeah. I asked moms, how many times have you said 1 minute I'm waving them off to kindergarten and the next minute I'm waving off to college? Because that's how fast life goes. At 63 years old, if there's one thing I would say to anybody who's entrepreneurs and coming up and trying to make something of themselves, is we don't have time, guys. We really don't have time. Time is running out every single day. So the idea of making, I don't know, $20 million a year is so you can help more people and be on the bigger platform. And that's what it's about. I'm not worrying about, I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong. It's great every time I go to the ATM or a mortgage, I'd have to worry about anything pertaining to finance. I never thought I'd be in this position because I have to let that go. I have no idea how much I've got in the bank. I have no idea how much we charge. My wife and my assistant look after that. Because like you, I was looking at my app on my phone for the Bank of America like 5, 6, 10 times a day. I'm like, I can't, it's going to drive me crazy, you know? So I literally, in the morning, I do my breath work, my teeth work, my mirror work, and I literally live for the 12 hours it's going to come and try and be that guy who's kind, and I've been taken advantage of so many times, that we don't even borrow money or lend. If somebody wants money from us and it's a valid reason, we just give them. Just give it. We don't expect it back. It's too many sleepless nights, and or don't want to know that. I've been taken advantage of a lot of times. I'm getting better now, but yeah, you have to keep reminding yourself that we created this 7.3 seconds. So if I'm going to now, sometimes it was 5 and sometimes it was 9, but we love the idea of 7.3 because it kind of sticks in my head. That if you're going to do something, so if I'm on the sofa tonight, I've got a big can of Coke and a big bag of chips, and I turn around to my wife and I go, hey, you know something, wifey, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow. I ain't going to the gym. I know it. She knows it. The dogs know it. I'm not going to the gym. But in that 7.3 time frame where neural pathways split for a decision, if I get up straight away, I get my bag, I put my sneakers in, I put it near the door, it's a good chance of me going tomorrow. So the ideas that we get will be distant tomorrow or 2 or 3 days ago. So ideas come into your head for a reason. And the quicker you clear all your stuff up and you start to get well psychologically, people say, wow, there's so many things coming my way, man. This is awesome. They were always there. It's just that you were too busy to see them. You were too busy chasing that $1 million contract when God, Uncle Jimmy, universe was giving you 10 million. You didn't see it. You're focused. I've got to focus. It's like, man, you're going to be focused on that million when you're 85 years old, sat in a home somewhere and go, where the fuck did my life just go to?
This is an important realization because, a lot of the messaging that even I have bought into through time is, we are supposed to sacrifice our best years to live later, right? And of course, there's seasons of sacrifice, which I completely believe in. But I feel like as I've gotten older, one of the scariest realizations is from 23 to 33 went by like a fucking microsecond. And now my parents are older. Life is coming at me quicker and time continues to accelerate. And how do we find the balance between trying to work as hard as we possibly can to accomplish the goals that we have while also being present enough to experience everything that's around us? Because we can get trapped in that busy trap, right?
Yeah. It's all about looking at you and taking time for you, whatever that looks like. And you've got to get into a pattern. You've got to get into a routine every day, like a baseline of a routine. Do thousands of things. What I do is I get all my patients to write 5 things every day in the morning, what you're going to achieve that day, despite you might do 100 things, but these 5 have to be done. I do my breath work in the morning, which grounds me and ignites the conscious brain. And I have that pattern of what I do and what I don't need to do that day. And slow everything down. Box breathing, all the stuff that we use, brain spotting, to bring you down to the now, because God forbid you walk out the door tomorrow and get hit by a bus. You just don't know. I've known loads of friends that were gone. It's just like life is so precious, and we become so complacent as human beings. But life is so precious, and when you realize that, like when we started this podcast today, we never get that time back. It's gone. It's finished. It's over. So we're an hour older than we was when we started. When you start to realize that A, you were put on this earth for a reason. B, anybody can do anything that they want in life unless you have brain damage. And thirdly, we don't have time. And people always say to me, when I said you can literally be anyone or do anything, that's how the brain works and the mind. That's how it works. It's A and B and C will follow. Well, I can't be president of the United States. That's what they used to say to me. Forget your political views for a second, guys. We had a freaking business running the country for 4 years that had no political experience whatsoever. Don't dare tell me that you can't achieve your dreams. It's just not true. Or somebody's put that there. I want to apologize because somebody's put that there. And we'll hold on to that, and we'll hold on, and we'll hold on. And we're sat in the chair at 90 years old, you realize that that wasn't true. What that guy, that girl, it wasn't true. And that, you've been running through fear, abandonment, shame, imposter syndrome all your life. It's like, who gives a shit if someone finds out who you are? You've got to live for today. You've got to stand up, put the chest out, walk out the door, smile at everybody. Talk hi, everybody, man. You don't know what people are going through. So there was a guy walked to the Golden Gate Bridge, threw himself off, committed suicide. Police dragged him out the river. They found ID, back to his apartment, looking for next of kin. When they got to the apartment, they found a note on the table. and it read, I'm going to walk to the Golden Gate Bridge, throw myself off and commit suicide, unless on the way there, somebody smiles at me, says good morning, waves at me, nods at me, I will stop there, turn around, and I'll try again. Here's the question, guys. How many people have you walked by today who's heading to the Golden Gate Bridge? See, it's not about us. It's not about us. And when you start to realize that and you're giving out all the stuff that you want starts coming to you, man. Because that's what it's about. It's not about me. People that are struggling out there, say to them, it's not about you. They go, well, there's 1,000 people died today waiting for you to get your fucking shit together. And you want to sit at home and relapse and relapse and relapse. How selfish of you. There's people waiting for you, to help them, and you just sat at home doing nothing. Come on, guys.
This is really interesting to me because in 2022, the Surgeon General came onto a national broadcast in the United States and said the biggest challenge that we have in society today of America is not another viral pandemic, but an epidemic of isolation and loneliness. When you think about how many people are fighting silent struggles, the numbers become overwhelming.
Yeah.
And we think that there's going to be some sort of magical experience that's going to transform this. But when we think about how we can impact the community that we all live in, it's doing exactly what you said. It's being present enough to not be distracted by your fucking phone and to look at somebody and say, hey, I like your shoes. Smile at somebody. Wish them a good morning. Because that sense of connection is something that we have completely lost in society today because we've been tricked into thinking that the connection is going to come from somebody who doesn't give two shits about you in another country that doesn't know anything about your life experience. And I really worry about that, Dr. Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, look at COVID. We've not seen the backlash yet, guys, of COVID. We think we have. So, no, we haven't seen it. So you ask the Japanese were good at this, and to some extent, the United States are good at this, which I'm thankful they are. What's the worst thing you can do to a human being? Well, you take their identity off them and you isolate them. That's it. What did we do through COVID? We took identity off us because we all wore a mask and they told us to stay in our house. So I'm speaking to a kid a couple of years ago and I'm like, how many friends you got? Oh, I have 5,000 friends on Facebook. I said, you plugged into the wall. How many friends do you? What? And everyone's on iPads and everyone's doing this. And it's like our youngsters have lost the art of communication. And there's a price to pay for that. And we're going to see more and more horrible things happening with isolated teenagers. I mean, during COVID, when a liquor store is granted a serious business to stay open, we know we have a problem somewhere. So divorces went up by 12% during that time. Alcohol consumption went up by 27%. And just these figures that we track throughout is our future, and we've got to look forward to it. Unless there's a huge change around with people like me and you and millions of us trying to change, because nobody's standing up right now and telling the truth. Everyone's trying to hide. It's like the food industry is killing you, man. 90% of everything in any supermarket is killing you. It's got so many rancid oils in it. It's all sprayed in cornstarch. There's red this, yellow this. Nobody gives a shit. There's some stuff there you can't even methylate. So if you can't methylate, it becomes a deficiency. That deficiency causes an illness. So, if my dad has heart problems, I'm on a staple diet with him. There's something he can't methylate, some food or vitamin. He gets heart problems. I leave the house. I'm kind of follow the same staple diet because I can't. I have a deficiency. It causes me heart problems, and I think I got it from my dad. It's not. So unless the food company ties you up and gets you sick, and the pharmaceutical company got you for life. I say it all the time. Is there anybody out there now who's listening to this podcast ever taken a drug that's cured the illness that you don't have to take anymore? Yeah, I didn't think so.
Why would you cure it when you can treat it forever?
It's a lost client. It's a lost client. It's like they're crazy. Diabetes, 1, 2, and 3. Alzheimer's, now diabetes 3. All about the sugar. And yet you look at the diabetes website. If somebody came to me tomorrow, they wouldn't. But if they did and go, how do I get diabetes? Do you know, I'll send them to the diabetes website. On the first page, follow that diet. Follow that diet and you will get diabetes. Nobody wants to get anybody well anymore. And nobody wants to talk about it, It's like I was on a live nationwide discussion. That's a few years ago now. But Purdue attorneys were on, Purdue's COO was on, and me. And they said, you don't need, no, you don't need to go on with this. This guy's, you know, we had a discussion on there was heated. And if I get into a heated discussion, the only voice you're going to hear is mine. I make sure of that. They filed for bankruptcy the next day. Now, I'm not saying it was me, but I had a part to do with it and other things that was going on. It's like, wake up, America, please. You know, we get depressed. Everyone gets depressed, guys. So we look at the medical journal. What does depressed say? Lack of serotonin. But we don't ask why my serotonin is low. We go straight to the doctor, and he gives us SSRI. It's a false serotonin. So I'm stuck on that. And guess what happens to my serotonin? Because it can't go higher than the false one. It depletes and it depletes and it depletes. So the only way I'm going to stand a chance in life is take that medication for the rest of my life. That's how the medical fraternity work. Everyone's getting backhanders, everyone's getting money, cars, houses, it's just horrible the way it works right now because there's no money in well people.
Earlier in the conversation, you mentioned something really important. You said getting better is a choice, right? There's an element of accountability in there. Now, I know from our book that you had an experience where you met somebody and then you spent a lot of time together and then all of a sudden they were gone just like that. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Wow. I wouldn't share this for 10 years, Keenan. I would not share it because, in fact, 10 years ago, I just started sharing after 30 years. So I'm on the streets one night. I've died twice. Everything's gone wrong. 13, 14 months in. And I dropped down to my hands and knees one night, early morning, like 2 or 3 o'clock Monday morning. It's pouring down with rain. I was done. I was absolutely done. I was crying, not because I'd lost my children or my wife or my houses and all that stuff. Right there and then, the cry from my belly was because I knew and I realized I couldn't stop drinking. I looked up to the sky as an atheist because my priest molested me hundreds of times. And I don't know why. And I just looked up in the pouring rain as the rain was hitting my face and I screamed out, if there's a God up there, I can't do this on my own anymore. I remember it as if it was 2 hours ago. This guy walked around the corner, man. He had a little Bible in his hand. He was pouring down. Turns out he'd missed his last psalm from a Bible study and he's walked like an hour. He took this shortcut and found me. So he said, you can come to the house. Went back, I shaved, a bath for the first time in a year. And he said, you can stay for as long as you want, Rob. I was like, wow, but, so, God, here's the but. You've got to go to these 12-step meetings, AA meetings with me. And I'm like, dry bed, Rob. I said, okay, it's dry bed, I'll come. So the next day I went to this meeting and sure enough, all the war stories started. And then this guy, almost opposite, because it was in a circle, said, my name's John, I'm a recovered alcoholic. And I looked at Derek and I looked back at him and I went, what did he just say? He said he's recovered. You can't be fucking recovered. I've just lost it. What's he talking about? So I was angry at this guy, but the more he spoke and the more he pointed to the book and all this stuff he's telling was true. So I went up to him at the end of the meeting and I said, hey, John, my name's Rob, will you sponsor me? And he went, no. And just before the world opened up and swallowed me, because that walk of about 20 yards felt like the Sahara Desert to go over and ask for help, he said, I will be a spiritual advisor for 12 weeks. So he had me every Wednesday going round there. I used to leave Derek's at 6, got there for 7, could not knock on his door before 7, weirdo. And at 1 minute to 8, no matter what we were doing, he'd walk me to the door, bid me good night, and away I went. So 3 hours of my life, every Wednesday, 12 Wednesdays, going to the same place, doing different stuff, feeling amazing. And the last day he said to me, on the Wednesday, he said, God bless you, Rob, God's got big plans for you, and your life will change from tomorrow. And I said, John, I love you, and thank you for everything. But I'm in Derek's basement on a blow-up mattress. Nobody knows I'm there. Can't change. He said, God will take you to far-off places. And so I went home, but I felt great when I went home because my last session, I walked differently. I was proud. It was, I was like, I had a lot of confidence on me. God, the very next day, I'm cleaning up at the house because that was my job. Derek comes home. He went, hey, the guy sweeping the floor has just left. Do you want a part-time job? And I'm like, oh, my God, yes. Which later turned out to be a full-time job. Anyway, I get my paycheck about 2 or 3 weeks after. And I'm thinking of John. I'm like, all these things that's happened. I'm working with people. They're getting well. So I bought him a little teddy bear. I was going to surprise him. Bought him a teddy bear for the gas station. That's all I could afford, let's be. And a card. And I wrote on the card, thank you, John, for introducing me to God because he, capital H, took the compulsion to drink away. And I went back to his apartment. Nobody there. Curtains look a bit dirtier. And I was on the door, woman on the right come out, can I help you? I said, yeah, is John still living? Is John who? I said, John, your neighbour. Well, I've only been here 3 months. There's nobody been in there. Well, so let her go. Obviously crazy. Knocked on the left-hand door, and the big guy came to the door. What do you want? I said, can you tell where John's moved to, relocated and anything? John, next door to you? He went on to tell me that that was derelict. When you open the door, you'd fall down to the basement. There's no flooring in it. And I'm like, this is weird. So I'll go back to the meeting. I'll see John there. So the next day I went back to the meeting. I walked in, and I'm known as Robert back in the UK. Robert, oh my God, you're back again. Like, thank God for that. You recognize me. Does John still come here? And he said, John who? And I'm like, John. Now I'm getting annoyed, Keenan. Now I'm getting really, I think all these are in on this joke. I was over near the coffee machine talking about seeing him every Wednesday. And he said, Rob, we were chuckling because you were over near the coffee machine. We thought you'd found God because you were speaking to yourself. Never found that guy. But most of his work that he taught me is what we do today. Years and years in advance he was, because he was on a mission. So I only started telling the story 10 years ago, and then 7 years ago I admitted that it was an angel. It had to be an angel, because my life took on from there, and I did come to America, and that was a fluke, and my passport had run out and all that, but it's just crazy. So, if you're out there, John, listening to this, and you're an angel, I owe you my life. That's for sure. So when people say, why'd you do this free, or why'd you do that free, or pro bonos or stuff, I want to be your John. That's all I say. I want to be your John. Because I'm not supposed to be here. So every day for me is added. The daughters that I lost, ages 1 and 3, the police took them off me because I went on a 2-day bender when I had them, and they'd not been fed or changed diapers, and the police took them off me. And the wife was there, and the services were there, and my eldest had Mummy's hand, and she's walking down the path with her, and she said 3 things to the guys. Daddy, Daddy, please don't go. Daddy, Daddy, please get better. And the last thing she said to me was, Daddy, Daddy, please stop drinking. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it for them, I couldn't do it for me, I couldn't do it for nothing. So 4 years ago, she got in contact with me after 28, 30 years. Dad, I want to see you, blah, blah, blah. And we flew over there, probably more than that. My head for dates and times is not good. But we flew over, we met for the first time in all them years. She hugged me, and she walked into a living room, holding my hand, walking in, and she handed me my 3-month-old granddaughter. And it was right there and then I knew I was doing the right thing. And I would bow before no man because I was doing the right thing. Now she's my lead therapist in my Manchester office. And my youngest, 5 weeks ago, got in contact with me on Messenger, and I go to see her in a couple of weeks. So everything comes full circle, guys. You just got to know who you are, do your stuff, stay strong, be positive, and get that conscious mind visualizing where you want to go. I mean, the visualization is really easy, guys. It's kind of, if you can imagine a basketball court, imagine 10 of you. So, hey, Jimmy, if you're listening, imagine 10 of Jimmys on that court, okay? You can imagine all 10 Jimmys, you close your eyes, mind. Where would you want to be? Well, I've never played basketball, but I'm not a fool. Over near the goal, near the net. I'm going to get the ball. I'm going to get a ladder because I can't jump that high. I'm going to bash the ball in the net. I'm going to be the hero of the game. Makes sense, huh? How do I get there? You walk over and you take that position. You don't beg for it. You don't crawl for it. You walk over and you take that position. You see, quantum physics says if we can see it, we can do it. If we can visualize it, we walk over and we take it. And I found that to be true all of my life since I come off the streets at 28, 29. All of my life. You've got to believe, you've got to want, you've got to go, and you've got to take it, man. Nobody's going to knock at the door tomorrow, guys, and go, hey, listen, I've got $1 million job for you here. I've got a future wife, a car, and nobody's doing that. You're on your own here, guys. Make the first step. Get a spiritual whatever in your life, because you can do it, man. I'm telling you, I've worked with 8,500 patients. Every single one of them has bettered their life, because you really need to know the secret of living. It's not what you think it is. You need to know the secret of addiction. It's not what you think it is. You've got to know the difference between our food. It's not what you think it is. We're all being told lies, and we're falling into that, getting the box syndrome. And if you want to become a champion, if you want to become a leader, and everybody who's listening to this now, you're not listening by mistake. I'm too old for this shit. I've been through this so many times. You're listening because you have been chosen to take this information and go out and lead an area, a country, and the world. You know, we're chain breakers, guys. Nobody else going to break the chain with your mental illness going through generation. You can do that right now. You can start. It's not as hard as you think, and it's not what you think it is.
Dr. Kelly, I can't thank you enough for this conversation. You are the embodiment of somebody who has overcome extreme challenges. You've leaned into the moments of doubt. You've been to the very bottom. You've died twice on the streets of Manchester. You're now helping other people who don't have the opportunity to raise their hand for help. And you're proving that there is a way to get these things done, like treating addiction and alcoholism, that a lot of people are not interested in actually giving us the real answers to solve. And I just want to say, for everybody who's truly, listening and tuned into this episode, you were meant to listen and watch this episode, because the message that you just heard from Dr. Kelly is an incredible one. And I just want to say, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Keenan. It was absolutely amazing. Take care and think about it, guys.